Hi again. Well, I'm back in the van. I went and had lunch, and it stopped raining for now. And I was watching some YouTube, and it occurred to me that one thing I'd like to really talk about is kind of the psychological and social hopes that I'll get out of van dwelling, living in a van. Now I hear a lot of people who go van dwelling and they're isolated, they're lonely, nobody around. And that could totally happen to me. Although I probably don't think I'll feel lonely because now I never feel lonely. I'm never alone. I'm always by myself because I don't abandon myself anymore. Or at least in this iteration of my lifestyle, I don't abandon myself. Who knows what happens when I get out there? But for most of my life, at least certainly my adult life, I've always had this motor. Get home. Get home. Do what you're doing. Get it and get home. Get home right away. Get home. Get back into your comfort zone. And and I've identified this as like a defect, like some kind of you know, a defect. And and I've often wondered if things will change dramatically. Well, let me backtrack. First of all, this whole enlightenment thing that happened, or as I define it, because enlightenment means different things to different people. So, as I defined it, that hasn't changed this that desire to get back home. I'd say it's less neurotic, but there's still the habit of wanting to get home, get home, get done with what I'm doing and get home. So I've thought for a long time, if I'm in a van and it's comfortable and it feels like home, will I be able to feel that sense of being at home here in the van? Whether I'm out in Ehrenberg or Quartzsite or Lake Havasu, Slabs, or up in the Ansel Adams National Forest or any other of the forests or state parks, the New Mexico state parks. That's something I'd like to do. That whether I'll feel that rhythm of being a van dweller. And I certainly don't want to be alone all the time. Of course, like I said, I'm never alone per se like that. I'm never lonely. At least I haven't been. But will solitude suit me? I have a suspicion it will, but I have to taste it. And then, of course, I wonder if I'll want to be around people more and seek out events like music events. Here we have this music concert under the stars here in a local community here. And I like going to that. But I've gone alone before, and it just wasn't as fun as when I'd go with my husband. Will I find that fun when I'm by myself? Or will I crack that wall and start talking to people and having conversations? And will I have the boundaries or the wherewithal to know that, okay, this conversation is just not going anywhere. I'm going to move on to somebody else. I'm just going to keep talking to different people, more and more people, until I find good conversation and we click. It's one of my problems in the past is not having that persistence. So the previous video, I was talking about the rig and how I'm going to lay it out, and also my hopes for being able to support myself. But now I'm talking about, supporting myself socially, getting out there. One thing I'm thinking I would do is when I'm out there, I look up local NA groups, because I have some affinity with Narcotics Anonymous program. I'm not really doing the steps or anything like that. I don't really think I need it. But I do have an affinity towards people in recovery because I'm actually in recovery. That's what the whole spiritual search is, really, in my opinion. Or at least that's what the 12-step recovery is. It's kind of like a spiritual awakening. They talk about it in that way. I remember once in 2011, when I was searching for how to live rent-free, the Cheap RV Living web forum bulletin board system was linked. This was before the Cheap RV Living YouTube channel. And I remember making a post about van dwelling as personal development. Do you think it's possible to use van dwelling as a vehicle for personal growth, personal development? And the moderator, Bob Wells, who I hope to meet someday and show off my rig, that he replied, yeah, absolutely, because it was very instrumental in his life. Of course, he had a little different trajectory because he first bought a box van because he was living in Alaska and he couldn't afford rent, paying alimony and child support. And so he lived in the box van, but he did it as like a compromise. And he said he cried the first night feeling like a loser because all that cultural baggage of, hey, I have to have the sticks and bricks was going on there. And so he acclimated to it. And then he got married and moved to Asheville, North Carolina, and was living in a sticks and bricks. And at that point, he finally realized, actually being a nomad was actually what was really calling to him. And the rest is Cheap RV Living history. And I don't know if I'll need to have that going back and forth, but I might. For example, if I leave in 27, it's very possible the Christmas of 27, I might come back here, and that might give me a nice indicator of whether I'm going to continue being a nomad or not. There was something else I wanted to say, but I just can't remember it. Anyway, All right. Well, I think I'll leave it at that because I just can't remember what I was going to say. All right. Thanks for listening.